The 80s weren't just about neon and cassettes. They were the decade when some of the wildest motorcycles and cars in history were born. Machines with no filters, no electronics, and a personality you just don't find anymore. From sport bikes that broke records to beasts that defined entire generations. Today, we're going to travel back to that one-of-a-kind era to discover the 10 best motorcycles of the 80s, when madness had two wheels and a throttle. To understand the 80s, you need to understand just one word: competition. But not just any competition. It wasn't just about who could sell the most bikes. It was about who could dominate the future of motorcycling. And at the center of it all were four giants: Honda, Yamaha, Suzuki, and Kawasaki. These brands weren't competing in marketing, they were competing in engineering. Each one wanted to prove they could build the fastest, most advanced, and most impressive motorcycle in the world. And that sparked something completely out of control. A technological war, where every year new innovations pushed the limits even further. The goal was simple but brutal: to create the fastest motorcycle on the planet. But what's interesting is that in trying to achieve that, they ended up doing much more than just speed. Because to be faster, they had to improve everything. More powerful engines, capable of higher RPMs, stiffer and lighter chassis, better brakes, more aggressive aerodynamics, and designs that looked like they came straight from the future. Suddenly, motorcycles stopped being just transportation and started to become street-legal racing machines. What's more, this development didn't just come from the street. It was heavily influenced by the world of racing. Everything learned on the track started making its way into production bikes, and that meant each new model was more radical than the last. It was a time of constant evolution, where every year bikes became more powerful, faster, and more extreme, with no clear limits. That pressure led to the creation of the first real superbikes, high-performance machines designed to be the best. And that's why the bikes from the 80s weren't just amazing in their time. Today, they're still legends. Number 10. Kawasaki Z1000. The Kawasaki Z1000 is one of those bikes that perfectly represents the transition from the 1970s to the 1980s. It wasn't a modern superbike like the ones that would come later, but it was still a brutal, powerful machine with a presence that commanded respect from the very first moment. It came with a 1000cc inline four-cylinder engine, derived from Kawasaki's legendary Z series. A big engine full of torque with a strong, punchy power delivery. It wasn't especially refined or high-tech compared to what would come later, but it had something that many modern bikes have lost: pure character. It was a fast bike for its time, but also demanding. It didn't have electronic aids, ultra-modern frames, or sophisticated suspension. Everything depended on the rider. If you knew how to handle it, it was incredible. If not, it could get intimidating. Plus, its design followed that classic naked bike look from the era. Big tank, simple limes, and a straightforward riding position. No fairings, nothing aggressive or futuristic aerodynamics. It was a bike that showed everything it was, hiding nothing. And that's the key to the Z1000. It wasn't the most comfortable, it wasn't the most high-tech, it wasn't the most refined, but it was one of the most authentic. A bike that represented the old school, right before the 80s changed everything. Number 9. Yamaha VMAX. The Yamaha VMX1000 wasn't made to compete on the track or to be the most precise in the corners. It was built for something much simpler and more brutal, to accelerate harder than any other bike of its time. While the rest of the brands were obsessed with top speed and cornering, Yamaha decided to do something different. The heart of the VMAX was a 1200cc V4 engine, an uncommon setup that gave it a unique personality. But what was truly impressive was its V-Boost system, a technology that opened additional intake channels at high revs, allowing the engine to breathe more and deliver a brutal burst of power. The result wasn't linear. It was violent. It was a bike that, when you twisted the throttle, felt like it wanted to take off. And that completely defined its character. The V-Max wasn't progressive, it wasn't smooth. It was a machine that pushed you with a constant and growing force, especially during straight-line acceleration. It didn't matter if there were curves or not, its territory was the straightaway, where it could show off all its torque without restrictions. In terms of design, it also broke the mold. It had a muscular, aggressive, almost industrial look. Huge air intakes, robust lines, an imposing presence. It didn't look like a traditional sport bike. It looked like a machine built to dominate the asphalt with brute force. And that's the key to the VMX. It wasn't trying to be balanced. It wasn't trying to be refined. It aimed to be the most brutal, insane torque, wild acceleration, intimidating attitude. A bike that didn't ask you to understand it. It forced you to respect it, because while other bikes wanted to be fast, the V-Max wanted to be uncontrollable in a straight line. Number 8. Honda CBX1000. The CBX1000 wasn't just a motorcycle. It was a statement of intent from Honda. At a time when all the brands were competing for power, speed, and technology, Honda decided to do something completely different. To show just how far engineering could go, whether it made practical sense or not. And that's how this madness was born. An inline 6-cylinder engine. Something extremely rare, even today. 6 carburetors. 6 exhausts, an impressive width, and a sound that seemed more fitting for a race car than a motorcycle. It wasn't just about power, it was a completely different experience. Just starting it up was already a shell. But what's interesting is that the CBX1000 wasn't designed just to be fast. It was smooth, refined, with an incredibly linear power delivery. Unlike other, more aggressive bikes, this one offered a feeling of total smoothness. You could accelerate and feel how everything worked in perfect harmony. No excessive vibrations, no harshness, just pure, well-executed engineering. But of course, all that came at a price. It was a heavy, complex bike that was hard to maintain. It wasn't the most agile, nor the most practical for everyday use, but that wasn't its goal either. The CBX1000 wasn't designed to be logical. It was designed to impress. And that's where you really understand what this bike was all about. It wasn't the fastest, it wasn't the lightest, it wasn't the most practical, but it was, without a doubt, one of the most impressive ever made. Because while other bikes aimed to be better, the CBX1000 aimed to be unforgettable. Number 7. BMW R80 GS. The BMW R80 GS isn't just an important bike, it's literally the starting point for the entire modern adventure world. Modern adventure. If today we have tall bikes that can travel on pavement and hit the dirt without a problem, it's because in 1980, BMW decided to do something nobody else was doing. The name said it all. Gelände, Strasse, dirt, and road. But what really matters is that it wasn't just marketing. It was a completely new idea. Up until then, motorcycles were divided into 2 extremes. They were either for the road or for off-road. There wasn't a bike that could do both things well. And BMW decided to fill that gap. On a technical level, the R80 GS combined elements that, in theory, didn't make sense together. An 800cc boxer engine, typical at touring bikes, mounted on a frame capable of handling dirt roads, with longer travel suspension, a comfortable riding position, and a relatively light weight for its size. It was a strange mix. but incredibly functional. Plus, it introduced innovative solutions like the mono-lever system, a single-sided rear swing arm that simplified the shaft drive and improved overall performance. It wasn't just a different bike, it was a bike designed with a completely new logic. And most importantly, it worked. It wasn't the best on the road, it wasn't the best off-road, but it was good enough at both. And that made it unique. Six, Yamaha RD500LC. The Yamaha RD500LC was not just any bike. It was literally a MotoGP bike with a license plate. At a time when Japanese brands were obsessed with bringing racing to the streets, Yamaha decided to do something extreme. They took their experience from the World Championship and turned it into a machine that anyone brave enough could buy. Its heart was a 500cc V4 two-stroke engine, directly inspired by the Grand Prix bikes of the era. And that wasn't just marketing. It was a complex, lightweight engine designed to rev high and deliver power explosively. It didn't have the smoothness of a four-stroke. It had character. It had that typical two-stroke hit that suddenly pushed you forward when it hit the power band. And that's where the real experience began. It wasn't an easy bike. It wasn't progressive. It wasn't forgiving. It was a machine that demanded respect. If you didn't know what you were doing, it could become unpredictable. But if you understood it, it was one of the purest experiences you could have on two wheels. Number 5, Honda XR-V 650 Africa Twin. The Honda XR-V 650 Africa, Twin XR-V 650 Africa. Twin wasn't just another trail bike from the late 1980s. It was the bike that made adventure real for thousands of people. Directly inspired by Honda's experience in the Dakar Rally, this machine took all that racing DNA and brought it to the street in a way that was totally usable. Because yes, a lot of bikes won races, but few could do something even harder, be used every day without breaking down. And that's where the Africa Twin, thank you, made all the difference. Its 650cc V-twin engine wasn't the most powerful or the most aggressive, but it was incredibly tough, smooth, and reliable. It was an engine built to last, to handle mile after mile without complaining. It didn't matter if you were on the highway, on dirt, or in the middle of nowhere. The bike just kept running, and that was paired with a chassis designed for real adventure. Long travel suspension, a comfortable riding position, great range, and off-road capability far superior to most bikes of its time. It wasn't a pure competition bike, but it wasn't just a simple touring bike either. It was that perfect middle ground that lets you go anywhere. And that's where its true value comes in, because the Africa Twin didn't impress with numbers. It impressed in real life. It was the kind of bike you could load up, start, and set off to cross a continent without worrying, at least not too much. You didn't need to be a racer, you didn't need special tools, you just needed the desire to travel. And that changed everything, because it proved something that wasn't so obvious at the time. A rally-inspired bike could also be a travel companion. Number 4, Honda XR600R. The Honda XR600R wasn't made to compete in terms of speed, top speed. It was built to dominate where many other bikes couldn't even get in. In the wild craze of the 1980s, when every brand was obsessed with power and speed, Honda decided to keep its feet on the ground. Literally. Equipped with a single-cylinder 591 cubic centimeter engine, the XR600R offered something completely different from the superbikes of that era. Usable torque, mechanical simplicity, and extreme durability. It wasn't an explosive or sophisticated bike, but it delivered power perfectly suited for off-road riding. It climbed, crawled, and pushed forward no matter the terrain. Plus, it was built to take a beating. Robust chassis, long travel suspension, and simple mechanics that could be easily repaired. It was a motorcycle that didn't break down easily. And if he did, It was relatively simple to fix. And that, on difficult roads or in intensive use, was pure gold. It wasn't comfortable on the road, it wasn't fast on a straightaway, it wasn't an easy motorcycle for everyone. But on land, he was unstoppable. Number 3. Suzuki GSXR 750. The GSXR 750 was not just another motorcycle from the 80s. It was the motorcycle that redefined what a sports bike meant. When Suzuki launched it in 1985, the motorcycle world was still in transition. There were fast motorcycles, yes, but none brought the concept of competition to the street as directly as this one. The key was in its philosophy. While other brands were making powerful and heavy bikes, Suzuki did something completely different. They prioritized weight above everything else. The GSXR 750 was incredibly light for its time, thanks to an aluminum frame taken directly from racing. This didn't just make it faster, it made it much more agile, precise, and effective in corners. Engine? It was a 750cc inline four-cylinder designed to perform at high revs, spin fast, and deliver sensations very close to a race bike. It wasn't smooth or relaxed. It was direct, aggressive, and demanding. It was a bike that demanded you push it to the limit to get the most out of it. And all of this was wrapped in a completely new look. Full fairing, sporty riding position, design focused on aerodynamics. The GSXR 750 didn't look like a traditional street bike. It looked like a race bike with a license plate. Number 2. Honda RC30. The Honda VFR 750 RC30 wasn't just another bike. It was an obsession brought to life. When Honda launched it in 1987, it wasn't to dominate sales, but to dominate racing. It was a bike created specifically to homologate its participation in competition. In other words, basically a race bike you could buy. From the very beginning, everything about the RC30 was designed for performance. Its 750cc V4 engine wasn't just powerful, it was extremely refined and precise. It delivered power in a linear, controllable way, perfect for riding at the limit. It wasn't an explosive bike, it was a surgical one. Every acceleration, every gear change, every response was calibrated for maximum performance. The level of engineering was insane for its time. It featured titanium connecting rods, top-quality components, and an almost handcrafted construction. It wasn't a mass-produced bike. It was a piece of engineering designed down to the last detail. It also featured one of its most iconic elements, the single-sided swing arm, which not only made wheel changes easier during races, but also gave it a unique look. Combined with its rigid frame and high-end suspension, the RC30 offered a level of stability and precision that few bikes could match. And in first place, the Kawasaki GPZ900R. The Kawasaki GPZ900R. It wasn't just another bike from the 80s. It was the bike that changed everything. When Kawasaki launched it in 1984, the motorcycle world still wasn't ready for something like this. It wasn't just an evolution. It was a generational leap. For the first time, a production bike combined speed, stability, and technology in a truly balanced way. Its four-cylinder, inline 908 cubic centimeters engine, liquid-cooled and with double overhead camshafts, delivered impressive power for its time. But the most important thing wasn't just how fast it was, but how it achieved that speed. It was fast, yes, but also stable, controllable, and practical. In fact, it was the first production motorcycle to break the 240 kilometers per hour mark, something that at the time seemed straight out of another world. And it wasn't an exclusive track bike. It was a bike you could buy and ride on the street. That completely changed the rules of the game. It also introduced a much more modern design. Aerodynamic fairing, sporty riding position, aggressive lines, the whole package. The GPZ900R gave off a sense of speed even when it was standing still. It was the birth of a new concept, the modern superbike. And as if that weren't enough, it also had a presence in popular culture. Its appearance in Top Gun with Tom Cruise cemented its status as an icon. It wasn't just fast, it was coveted. After it came out, every bike had to be faster, more stable, more advanced. It didn't just start a trend, it started a whole new era. The 80s weren't just a decade, they were a turning point. It was a time when motorcycling stopped evolving slowly and started making giant leaps forward. It was the era when brands stopped playing it safe and started taking risks, innovating and competing without limits. And out of that chaos, machines were born that weren't just fast, they were legendary. Because back then, it wasn't just about improving what already existed, it was about reinventing it. Engines were more extreme, frames were lighter, designs looked like they were from the future, and there was a direct connection to racing that had never been seen before in street bikes. Every new model wasn't just an evolution, it was a statement. And that's why, when we look back, we realize something important. Today, motorcycles are faster, safer, and more advanced technologically. But many of those improvements were born back then, in that decade when everything changed. Because the bikes from the 1980s weren't just impressive machines, they were pioneers. They defined what sport bikes should be, set the path for modern engineering, and created concepts that we still use today. And that's the difference, because it's not just about speed, it's about impact. And in that sense, few motorcycles in history have been as important as those from the 80s.